is it time to quit Pinterest? So I'm live here on Facebook and YouTube, and I'm live on Instagram. My name is Jennifer Priest. I'm the founder here at Smart Creative Social, and this is part 2 of our series talking about, should you quit Pinterest? Is it time to quit Pinterest? Is it time to give up on it? Actually, I'm messaging someone right now in private messages on Facebook, and we're talking about this because it's really challenging. So I want to dive in today to what to do if you feel like quitting Pinterest, but you know that Pinterest is important for your business. Like, you're like, I want to be there. I know I should be there. I know my audience is there, but like, man, I am feeling like I should quit. So let's talk about what that looks like, right? You're probably feeling a little bit frustrated, maybe confused. You're like, I'm not getting the results that I want. I'm not sure what steps to take to fix that. I felt confident in the past. I don't feel confident now on Pinterest. And you're seeing things like drops in impressions, a drop in reach. Maybe your analytics numbers are going down, and you're like, hey, I don't want any of that happening. So if you're experiencing those things, but you're not ready to throw the towel in on Pinterest, but it has you questioning, right? And especially like the reason I'm doing this series is because in Facebook groups, in forums, there's a lot of people saying, oh my gosh, quit Pinterest, like focus on SEO, do this other things instead. And one thing is, nothing is a sure bet. But the other thing is, if you do decide to quit Pinterest, I want to make sure that you have all the information that you need, that you're able to position your account for performance, even if you're not on it. And then the other thing is, like, for those of you that want to keep getting traffic from Pinterest, I don't want you to quit, because this is temporary, right? This is temporary. Things will change. We may not get traffic back to where it was, right? There was like the glory days. Like, it's kind of like wishing that you were able to go and just stake a claim on land, like at the time of the Wild West, right? The Wild West is over, but that doesn't mean that you can't still, own land. You can't still create a farm. You can't still, live the American dream if you are an American. Doesn't mean you can't do that. It just means it's going to be different. And that's the same with Pinterest. Those good old days of when we would just get like a ton of traffic. It's not that you can't get more traffic, but that environment doesn't exist anymore, right? So what do we got to do now? So I'm going to give you a few tips of some things that you can do if you're like, oh, I don't know if I should quit or not, and you're feeling this frustration, you're feeling this confusion, you're not getting results, you're having those drops in impressions and reach. What is it that you can do to kind of get yourself back to a place of taking action with Pinterest? Oh, my phone's doing something weird. Sorry, guys. Okay, so how do you get yourself back to a place of taking action with Pinterest? All right, so the first thing is change your perspective and your expectations to long term. Now, it used to be we could put a pin on Pinterest and like right away you could see like reach, impressions, you start getting clicks, right? And we had this question come up inside of our membership. Today, actually, somebody was like, how do I make sponsors happy when they're used to seeing me get a lot of clicks on a pin, and now that's not happening? So we need to change our perspective and set our expectations to long term, right? Pinterest has always kind of been lumped in with social media. And on social media, you want to see results quick, right? You want to put something on Instagram and you want to start looking at the metrics right away. You want to put something on Facebook. You want to look at how many people are liking it, how many people are responding, how many people are sharing. We want to look at those numbers right away. We did that on Pinterest because Pinterest worked that way for a long time. But more and more, Pinterest is moving to be much more like Google, much more like a search engine type experience. And search engines take time to see results, right? Way back in the beginning, you could publish a blog post, you could publish a new page, you could publish a new product on a platform, and Google would pick it up right away, right? It would show it to everybody. And then as there got to be more spam, there got to be more competition, there got to be a higher level of quality expected from what was being published, Google had to change things, right? They had to create an algorithm. They had to start saying, oh, we're going to look at some different factors to determine what to serve. Same with Pinterest. Okay. So as there are more people putting content on Pinterest, as the volume of content is getting higher, as the experience of the user becomes more important because of the way that Pinterest is monetized, right? Pinterest makes money with ads. If people don't come to Pinterest because they're having a bad experience, Pinterest doesn't make money. So because of all of that, the quality of where they're sending people, the quality of the experience is really, really important. And so because of that, Pinterest takes more time to show people our content. Does it mean they're not going to show it? No, doesn't mean that. It means that it takes more time. So there are things you have to do to make sure the content is good. There are things you have to do to set it up for performance, but it's just going to take more time. So you put a pin out and you're like, beep, it shows it to like 1,000 people. And you're like, what? Like before we could see it be like showed to tens of thousands of people, like hundreds of thousands of people, some pins, millions of people. It'd be like so amazing. But we've got to change our expectations to longer term and say, okay, I'm putting this pin out today. I'm not going to look for results today. I'm putting this pin out today so that I can see results in the long term. And this is what I call planting oak trees. I always tell people in my program, I'm like, look, you're planting the seed and you're moving forward. And you're planting the seed and moving forward. And then it's as if you look over your shoulder in weeks, months, years down the line and are like, oh my gosh, a forest has grown up behind me. But not every seed that you plant is going to sprout. Not every seed is going to become something really big and amazing. Maybe a few of them will be these big, amazing trees, and some will be kind of in the middle, and some will be small, and some won't grow at all. The same with your pins. You're going to have a few that just kind of blow up, right, over time. And then you're going to have some that kind of perform okay, some that perform mediocrely, and some that don't perform at all. And I see this over and over. I have pins that are like 2, 3, 4 years old that all of a sudden in the last 12 months have shot up, and not just because of COVID. This Easter, I had an Easter pin that we hadn't done anything with this post for at least 2, maybe 3 years. I want to say we published it in 2018. I didn't do anything else with it. And this pin took off. Okay. It's not because of what we did today. It's because of how we planted the seed back then, but we were doing all the long-term stuff, right? I used to teach hacks and tricks and stuff like that. And what I learned is that stuff's not sustainable, right? It expires. So why would we keep doing stuff that expires and then we have to like always reinvent the wheel? So the things that are performing are the things where we really went in and said, okay, let's optimize our keywords. Let's do all these things that are, or optimize the pin with keywords. Let's do all these things that are going to set it up for long-term success and discoverability. So one thing is change your perspective, but with that, to long-term, but with that, change your expectations. So, one of the things that I tell people in my program as we're tracking KPIs, right? Key performance indicators, the analytics on the pins, and we actually don't track analytics on individual pins. Except for very few. Usually we're tracking it on the overall account because it's for crazy making to like watch individual pins. Imagine if you planted a seed and you watched it. It's not going to grow for a long time, right? You're going to feel like nothing's happening. But something is happening under the surface. The same with Pinterest. Or you might have heard that thing. I don't know if it was my grandma told me or my mom or somebody was like, if you watch the cookies baking in the oven, they're not going to bake. So it's like the more that you're like watching the pin, you're just going to make yourself go crazy. So just know you're planting the pin and you're doing everything to make it perform really well, right? Just like a seed, you're going to give fertilizer, you're going to give water, you're going to make sure it has sun. You're going to do all those optimization things to the pin to make sure it performs well. But then you're not going to sit there and like stare at it and make yourself go crazy being like, give me analytics. Like that's just going to make you go nuts. And we don't want to do that. Okay. So, number one, change your perspective and your expectations to focus longer term with Pinterest. Number two is create a pro-con list, right? This is a very simple thing, but sometimes I'll be like, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? I don't know. And if you kind of get stuck, I know I do this. I get stuck in this kind of like circle of doubt and confusion. And I'm like, should I go this way? Should I go that way? I don't know. And blah, blah, blah. And if you're like, should I spend time on Pinterest or not? Make a pro and con list. Like legit get out a piece of paper and write pros, cons. What are the reasons I should stay? What are the benefits? What are all the good things that can come out of this? And what are the reasons I should leave? Or take a break or whatever. Do a pro con list, right? I would do something like that. So let me see. I have a couple questions that came in on Instagram. I'm going to answer these at the end. I'm hoping it'll still show them to me. I saw a comment on there that says Pinterest wants you to pay to promote. Not not entirely the full picture. And so I do want to talk about that. Definitely. I'll talk about it at the end. So do a pro con list, okay? And compare what are the benefits versus what are the things that take away from what are like non-benefits, I guess. I don't know. The other thing is go to trends and do trends and audience research, right? There might be things that you're missing. There might be old things where you have opportunity. See what's happening on the platform. See what's happening. What are people looking for? Maybe there's something there that you might have been kind of missing, and you could reposition some of your content to fit in those places. I have a post too about should your business be on Pinterest. I have some videos about that over on my Facebook page at Smart Creative Social, but I also have on smartcreativesocial.com a blog post that's really detailed that says, should my business be on Pinterest? And there's a lot of information in there for that. So if you're like, oh, I don't know if I should or not, go in there and read that because there's a lot of information. I think you'll be surprised by what you find because I went really deep on it. The other thing is use what you have, right? Use what you have. So if you have a subscription to a newsletter that tells you about Pinterest, if you are in a program or a course about Pinterest, if you are in a mastermind, if you are subscribed to the Pinterest engineering blog, those are signals. Use those things, right? If you're frustrated, use the things that you have. Like one of the things that I noticed in my program, and this is in every program, right? People forget there's Q&A calls. People forget like, okay, where am I going to go to ask questions about? Lean on the communities that you're a member of and lean on those programs and say, hey, I need some help here, right? I need some guidance. Instead of just throwing the towel in, you've already invested the money in that thing. Use it to the max. Okay. And one of the other things is analytics. Dig deep on your analytics. Now, I like to say, yes, I like us to look at overall analytics on our account, but if all of a sudden we see a drop, right, where like, let's say we're at, 1,000 or I don't know, let's say we're at 1 million impressions on our account today. And then tomorrow it drops to 5,000, right? Something really significant like that. We're like, whoa. We can look at the overall account, but we also then want to drill down in analytics to individual pins, individual boards. We want to really figure out, okay, what happened? Is it one pin that's responsible for this? A group of pins? Is it everything? Is it just a lag? Like this is something I've been seeing on my own Pinterest account for about 8 months. There's a lag in data. So if I wasn't regularly checking and all of a sudden I went to look and check at it, I guarantee you today, if I looked at it, it would look like my numbers fell off a cliff. But if I looked at these numbers for this date, in 3 days from now, they would be fine. So there's a lag on some accounts. And so you want to be looking at those numbers regularly. You want to dig in and go, okay, where's the problem? And the reason I figured out that there was a lag is because I actually went into Google Analytics and I compared my Pinterest analytics with Google Analytics. And I was like, well, Pinterest says nothing happened yesterday. And Google says I got traffic that was similar to the traffic I normally would expect. So there's probably not a problem. It's probably a problem with Pinterest analytics having a lag in the measurement. But dig into your analytics. What I found, like 95% of the time when we dig into analytics, we either find the solution to the problem, but more often than not, we find out that it wasn't as bad of a problem as we thought. It's usually like one pin or a couple pins. That's the issue. So analytics can help you with that because then if you're like, oh, my account's not totally dead, it kind of gives you some new hope and momentum to take action and move forward. Another thing that you can do is if you're like, okay, the program that I was in, it's not working for me anymore. I do still want to do Pinterest, but I need some new perspective. Invest in a new program. Look for fresh input. Now, you might be thinking, well, Jennifer, I don't want to invest in your program because it costs a lot of money or whatever your perceptions are of it. That's one of the things, like money is always a thing where it's easy for us to use as an excuse of why not to buy something, right? We might say, oh, that latte is too expensive, but then we spend, $50,000 on a car. So it's all like in what we decide that we want to spend money on. But maybe you've decided you don't want to invest in someone's program. There are probably other things that they can offer you. Like I was talking to someone this morning about a Pinterest account audit. You can get a Pinterest account audit where I one-on-one will look at your account and give you feedback. We can meet on a coaching call. There are all kinds of options for working with people. So you can invest in another program, or you can look for that fresh input in other ways. A lot of people who do Pinterest programs offer other services where you can, they might have a membership. They might have where you can book one-on-one time with them. So do something like that to get some other perspective. Another thing is just take a break, slow down, and do the analysis. One of the things that is a behavior that we have that doesn't work well with Pinterest or anything on social media is that when the numbers go down, and I don't know if this is just because this is what we were taught a long time ago, or if this is because, I don't know why this is. There's probably some kind of like psychological reason we do this. So we're like, okay, this thing that I was doing was getting me results. Now all of a sudden I'm not getting results. And our natural response is to do more of that thing. Well, Pinterest is like, look, if we were like not showing your pins to people because they were spammy, and now you're doing more spammy pins, like that's not going to get you results, right? So do the opposite. Instead of doubling down, tripling down, slow down. Slow down, maybe turn off your scheduler for a minute. If you have automation running, maybe dial that back a little bit and look at what is happening. Dig into your analytics. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to even take a break. Okay, so if you're like, oh man, stuff's not working, blah, 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 slow down. All right, your pins that are already on Pinterest are still going to be working for you. So slow down, take some time to analyze. Don't go and say, okay, I'm going to go hire someone on Fiverr and they're going to make 200 pins. I'm just going to like blast Pinterest. That is not going to work. That's going to look like spam. So avoid the temptation to double down, triple down, and instead slow down. Like kind of pump the brakes a little bit, okay? Another thing that you can do is hire someone who's really skilled at Pinterest to manage it for you. And I would say that's typically going to be either someone in-house and you help them with the strategy, but if you're not getting results, that'll probably be a little challenging, or it will probably be an agency. That's another option, right? If you have problems with your content, like this is why I say it has to be someone really skilled, because if they're not really skilled, they're just going to go pin your stuff that already doesn't perform. We don't want that. We want someone that's going to give you new ideas, that's going to give you new perspective, that's going to say, okay, these 10 things are working, these 5 things aren't. What do we got to adjust? Okay. And you need someone really skilled. So those are some ideas for you of what you can do if you feel like quitting, but you know that Pinterest is important for your business. What are some things you could do differently? And notice I didn't say pin 5 times a day, I don't know, make new boards. I didn't say any of that stuff. Okay. Those are all tactics. Those are all things that expire. Those are all things that change. Those are all things that are different from account to account. What I'm telling you here are things that are going to last a long, long time, right? You can do this for a lot of things, right? Change your perspective and your expectations to long term. I'm just doing a quick review here. Write a pro and con list. Look into trends and do some trend and audience research and see if there's anything that you're missing out on that you could capitalize on. Check out my post about should your business be using Pinterest. It's really detailed. It's over on smartcreativesocial.com. It's one of the the first blog posts when you click to the blog. Use what you have. That includes other programs, any kind of signals like Pinterest engineering blog that you might have like the RSS feed set up for. Dig into your analytics. Most of the time, what we think is a problem isn't necessarily a problem. It can be attributed to 1 or 2 pins. Invest in a new program, into new services. Look for some fresh input in addition to what you already have. Take a break, slow down, analyze. It's okay if you take a break because your pins are still on Pinterest working for you. And finally, you can hire someone who's really skilled to manage your Pinterest account for you. If you're like, look, I don't want to deal with this right now, hire someone really skilled. Okay, so I've seen a few questions and I want to answer those. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to explain what happens if you quit or take a break. Okay, so I want to tell you what happens. Like if you're like, I'm done, I don't want to do Pinterest anymore, I'm going to tell you exactly what will happen. And I think this will give you some interesting perspective, because when I do talk to people about this, usually what they say is they're like, I think I do want to stay on Pinterest, because when I explain how it works, they're like, wait. So like really there's not a lot to lose. There's a lot to gain and not a lot to lose. So I'll explain that more in detail tomorrow. So I got a few questions here that came in. I'm looking at the chat on Facebook and YouTube. I don't see any questions there, but I had a couple things come in here on Instagram. So I'm going to go ahead and answer those. So Mindy says, does Pinterest choose your content based on if you are running ads or not? No, I don't run ads at all. I think the last time I paid for an ad on Pinterest was, it has to be before 2018 or earlier. I haven't bought ads on Pinterest for a long time on the account where I'm doing all my experiments right now. And I don't pay. It's not pay for play. It's not pay to play. It's not. So yeah, Pinterest doesn't, I don't think Pinterest does that. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't see any evidence for that. Catherine says Pinterest wants you to have to pay to promote. So here's the thing. Pinterest is monetized with ads, right? So they make money when people buy ads. And then when people see the ads, they make money. And Facebook has had this same problem. Google has this problem. Instagram has this problem. Any platform that's monetized with ads, even bloggers have this problem. If the whole thing was ads, nobody would come. Right. So they've got to have some organic content. They've got to have some naturally occurring content show up. Why can't that be yours? Right. So you certainly can pay to play. You certainly can buy ads to show up. You can target specific keywords. You can target specific audiences. You can do all of that stuff. And that's awesome. But you don't have to do that. Right. Because all of these platforms will always have a need for good organic content to put in between the ads. That's just the nature of the beast. And so as people are using these platforms more, as they are serving up more ads, they're serving up the organic content they already have. And this is what I'm seeing on Pinterest. There becomes a deficit of organic content that's good quality, right? Because our quality bar is rising. Like what I could get away with posting 6, 7, 8 years ago will be terrible now. Like I look at my old blog posts, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing, right? Same with Pinterest and really any platform, but Pinterest very much so is having a deficit of quality content that people haven't already seen. This is why they're like fresh pins. And then we're like, doing them kind of wrong. And that's a whole nother topic. In fact, we're doing a brand new, a total refresh of our fresh pin training inside of my membership, Smart Pin Pro. We're doing that this Wednesday. We're running it live, and then the recording will be put into the knowledge vault within the program where you can go back and watch recordings and things like that. Because here's the thing, the bar is going to keep raising for the quality of organic content that we need to put out. And so if you're like, well, I had this pin that performed for years and years and years, it was at the top and now it's not, it's because the bar has moved. And so you're going to have to make new organic content to stay at the top. So you can pay, right? You can pay and buy ads to get in front of people, or you can continue to improve your content to get in front of people, or you can do both, a combination of both. But it's not exclusively, Pinterest is not exclusively pay to play, because if it was, it would be all ads. Catherine says, all my pins are fresh and my numbers are terrible. So I'm going to challenge you on this, Catherine, because this is what everybody says. And you guys, back in 2015, when I was trying to figure this stuff out, I would say the same. I'm doing all the things and I'm not getting results. What I see when people say that their pins are fresh, and you guys, I look at a lot of Pinterest accounts. What I see when people say their pins are fresh is they are not. They're operating off of what a fresh pin was. And even I taught some of these things. If you go back and look at my old stuff, I try to go in and delete it if it's really out of date, but sometimes there's stuff out there still. We used to be like, oh, just change something on the image, change the text, crop it different, right? Those things were fresh pins. We're really banking on the technicality of it, and we weren't going into the intent of the guidance. And so what I find is that like nearly 100% of the time, in fact, there has not been one single instance of anyone who has said that I'm making fresh pins and they're not working. There's not been a single instance of any of those people where I've gone and looked at their account and said, oh my gosh, you really are doing fresh pins very well. And I can't believe it's not working. Every single time that someone has said, I'm doing fresh pins and they're not working, I look at it and I'm like, you're doing fresh pins how we used to do them, right? You're doing fresh pins based on technicalities. You're not doing it to the intent of what is behind the guidance. And that's why like we're doing a whole training on it, because this is something that's coming up over and over and over again in our Q&A calls. Is just we're really trying to refine this idea of like, what is it to make a fresh pin? And then how do we like analyze what we did and figure out, okay, how do I do it different, right? So that's why we're doing that. Mindy says, thanks for the answer to her question. She's going to go check out the Pinterest audit. Yeah, Pinterest audit. I mean, if you guys are in my program, Smart Pin Pro, message me. I'll get you a discount code because we do have a discount for the audit. If you are, also, if you're in the program, we have a DIY Pinterest account audit you can do yourself. Plus, we have recordings, 2 years worth of recordings of me doing audits of members' accounts. So you can kind of just sit and watch and kind of see how we pick things apart. And then if you aren't in the program, you can buy an audit. So just go to my site, smartcreativesocial.com, and I believe it's on the services tab. You should be able to get to the audit from there. And if you can't find it, you definitely can message me here on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever, and I will drop you that link. Let's see. Chris says, most of my visitors come to my site in response to my newsletter and Pinterest. Awesome. That's an awesome job. Like you are building connection with them, which is amazing. Now, the other piece that you probably want to have in there would be some Google traffic. But Pinterest rocking and newsletter rocking, you can keep scaling those up. And that's good. You're doing a good job with that. Catherine says, every one of my pins is brand new. I never repost content. Yeah, like it's one of those things like, we have someone who joined my program in December last year, and he was like, I'm doing fresh pins. He sounded just like what you're saying. And then he and I had a call, and I went over his stuff, and he was like, now he says to me, it's so funny. He's like, now that you taught me how to do this, he's like, anytime someone posts in a Facebook group that they're like, I'm doing fresh pins, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I go look at their account and I can see the problem right away. And I'm like, yeah, once you know, you can't unsee it. But it takes that kind of learning and perspective and kind of like a little bit of just breaking how we saw things. I don't have a good analogy off the top of my head. If I think of one, I will share it with you guys, but it's just a different way of looking at it. And I would love for you, Catherine, to stop making new pins and instead learn how to make fresh pins that get you results, right? Like you're just feeding the monster, you're just feeding the machine and it's not getting results, right? Like, wouldn't it be nice if you knew how to make the fresh pins that then would get the results? That's what we want to have happen. Chris says she makes new pins through Tailwind Create and they're nothing like her existing pins, but they're still attached to old posts. Yeah, so it's not so much the graphic. Like I think we get so tight on the graphic, especially like, oh man, as marketers and bloggers, we messed this up. Like I will admit, we messed this up. When Pinterest came out with fresh pins, I wasn't the first to ask this, but other people asked this and I kind of like fell in line behind them as far as like, what percentage of the graphic needs to be changed in order for it to be a fresh pin, right? We're trying to get Pinterest to say this percentage. And I think our focus was so in the wrong place. And I wish Pinterest could have better articulated this. Maybe if I went back and looked at stuff, maybe they were articulating it and we just didn't want to hear it, right? That could be what was happening. But it's not about the graphic. It's not about the graphic. Like it's about the intent. And I don't have time to go like super deep on that here because I wanted to keep these short as possible, but I'm loving the questions. I'm definitely going to go live on Instagram again. Because I'm loving the questions that you guys are putting on here and your comments. Okay, so that is it for today. Thank you guys for being here. This was part two of my series. Is it time to quit Pinterest? What do you do if you feel like quitting, but you know that your business, like you know that Pinterest is important to your business? What do you do? That's what this video was about. Tomorrow, I am going to be going live to talk about what happens if you quit. And if you missed part one, who should quit using Pinterest right now? That was on yesterday over on my Facebook page and on YouTube. So you guys can go find that. I streamed it, actually not yesterday. I streamed it the day before yesterday because yesterday was Sunday. And this is a 5-part series. So we've got 3 more videos coming up. I will see you guys again tomorrow, where we're going to be talking about what happens if you do quit or take a break from Pinterest. Thanks so much.